Hi everyone, hope you guys are doing great. In today's video, we are going to track the orders that we have created, and we'll be able to see the details of the order as well. And during the process, we will be trying to make some amendments and improvement within the code that is basically necessary for our future development. So without further ado, let's move to the project. Let me just log in, and you can see I can check out any item, adding this to the basket, and then once I click checkout, it says order have been placed. But if I need to see where my order is and what's the state of the order and how many items I have placed, so I am not able to track it. If you can see, previously we have created this link, but if I try navigating to this, there is nothing, and hopefully it might crash. So let's start with the development. Okay. So you might have realized. So we usually start by creating controllers. So this time we are going to add a orders controller. So let me just add a controller, and I'm going to name this accounts controller. Sorry, not the accounts controller, the order controller, because we already have an account controller. Order controller. So with the order controller being created, so let me just create a public constructor. Let me just and we are going to inject a specific repository, the IOrder repository, which we are going to create in a while. So let's just bear with me, and I'm going to name this order repository. So with this one, we need also we need the URI composer. So let's just try to inject the URI composer, this one, and let me just call this URI composer. So we have two items. Let's just try creating order. It's going to be order repository. We are going to call this order repository, and for the second thing, we are going to call the okay, one thing I just done. Okay, these underscores we usually use for our private variables. So remove this, and I'll be using it over here. With this being done, so let's just create a private read-only field. Let's see if it works or not. So let me just try. Okay, so it have done it, rather despite the fact that IOrder repository itself is not present. So let me just try creating interface in new file. For the time being, I'm keeping this here. So I'll be rearranging it later once we'll be moving further in the code. So with this being done, let's just move to the index section. Within the index section, one thing which we can do is to add async to this with a task being there. Okay. And what we are going to do over here, we are going to create certain orders. So we are going to create orders, and we will be trying to use the order repository. So within the order repository, we'll be creating certain methods, but for the time being, let's just try adding, because we are going to fetch a list of orders, and this time we are also going to use async. I'll be quickly showcasing you when we'll be moving to that code. But for the time being, just think that we will be creating a method which is going to return a async list. So with this being done, let's just try adding a new specification. So with a new specification, let's just call this, let me just first get hold of a specification and then I'll try to rename it. So rather than basket with name, I'll be calling this customer order with item specification. So I'll be creating this in a while. So let me just create this. At least I can just, okay, let me just create the variable first. This is going to be accepting a user.identities dot name. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to provide the user identity to this list, and then we are going to get the specific order against this user. So let's just try implementing this. Let me just generate this class in a new file. I'm still keeping this over here rather than moving to the right folder. So I'll be moving it in a single go. So with this being done, let me just use this and then I can do this. Okay. With this order being fetched, we need to provide it back to the view. So to provide it back to the view, we need a view model. So let's just create a view model. And what we are going to call this, we are going to call this orders, which we have fetched. Let's just call this orders because it could be multiple orders. And then we are going to use the select on that. So I think I should have created that other things. Otherwise, I will not be able to showcase you the IntelliSense part. So I'm going to change this IOrderRepository and I'm going to call this a public interface. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to implement, or you can say it's going to further implement another interface. And what we are going to call that, and I think it's already present, IRepository of orders. So order is still entity which we haven't created. So what we are trying to do previously, if you can recall, when we were using IRepository, if I can quickly show you within the services, we are directly using IRepository within the service with this basket being provided. So we were directly using it rather than creating a specific basket repository, somewhat like a IOrderRepository, which we have created here. But the reason why I'm trying to do this, because moving forward, I'll try to implement async methods as well. And I don't want the previous synchronous methods to be deprecated. So at this given point of time, I'll be implementing both these interfaces in this. So with this being done, what I'm going to do, I'm going to implement another async repository, which I'm going to create right away, repository. And again, I will be providing order, that entity which we are going to create in a while, to this. And with this being done, so let's just first create this repository, generate this interface. I'm keeping everything within the controller folder. Just bear with me because I'll be placing it in the right folders once we have done this. And with this order, let me just create this as well so we don't get errors. So with the orders being here, and what methods we are going to implement, let's just call a method. We are going to call the order, and then we are going to call get by ID with items. So we are going to fetch a order based on the ID. So let's just call this So we are going to get a single order and the same implementation for a async. For async, you are already aware that we use task to return, and what we are going to call this get by item, get by ID with items async. So at least async. So we get to know that this is a async method. So we have both our synchronous methods as well as the async method, and the same we are going to do because we are going to gradually deprecate our asynchronous library, or we might be using it for certain synchronous options operations. Sorry. So with this being done, let's just move to the IAsync repository so you get a feel at what we are trying to achieve. Before moving to the IAsync repository, let me quickly show you the actual repository that we have over here in the interfaces. IRepository. If you can recall, we have created an interface for the IRepository, and over here you can see different methods. Let me just do one thing. Let's just move async repository over here in this interface. I should have deleted that. Okay, so let me just move the IOrder repository over here as well. So I should have like pressed shift or like control. So rather than like copying, it should have moved it because I'm moving from one project to another, and that's the reason it's copying. So we have our two things over here, and let me just use this IAsync repository interface to be filled. So let me just do one thing rather than creating everything. Let me just copy this so you get an idea what we are going to do in this async repository. For the time being, I'm just keeping it over here, and I'm just copying this name from here over here. So you can see now we have an interface which is called ISync repository, having a type T, where the type T should be like having or have a base type of base entity. If you can recall, the base entity was having an ID inside it. So if any type which is like either inheriting or having a parent of this base entity, it can be used with async repository. If I can quickly show you any order, you can see the basket when we have created this basket entity. So we were like inheriting it from base entity. So base entity was the parent. The reason was this because we are like implementing a specific rule. So with this being done, let's just move forward. What we can do simply just to make it async, you know that we can use it to task. And what else we can do? We can use the async keyword. Even this is not required, but at least we get to know that this is an async method. Then again, for the list, we are going to use the task, and this list, rather than calling this list, we are going to call it list all. So it's going to provide all items within the list, and I'm going to call it async. And over here again, within this, we need to do the task list. And what we are going to do, we are going to call this list async. So this way, this doesn't collide with the above one. So let's async, and so we are having this. Okay, then for the add, again, a task was going to be created. Let me just don't remove this. Let me just create this task, and we are going to call this add async. I'm just copying it so we can quickly, and over here we are returning void, so we are just going to call this task, and this is going to be update async. And over here, instead of void, I'm going to call. The reason I have copied the code rather than typing is to let you guys know how easily we can like change a asynchronous method implementation or definition to a async definition. So that's just quick things that you need to do. One is the task, and the second thing just to have add an async, and further thing will be like looking down the road. So with this being done, let's just move further. So now with our IAsync repository uh, interface being created, so let's just see what we can do further. And over here we have the repository, and let's just try to go to the IOrder repository. Here you can see the order itself is not accessible. We have created it in another project. So let's move that to this project. But before moving this order over here in this project, let me brief you about a new concept that we are going to use, and we are going to call this order aggregate. Okay, so basically, when we are working in domain-driven design, there are like two ways or multiple ways to do creating entities. So certain entities that we have created, we have kept them separate, like this basket entity and the catalog brand and the item. They are a separate standalone entities. But for an order to be placed, we need to have like multiple things. One thing is that we need to have a specific buyer with the order, because without having a buyer or anyone ordering, order can't be placed on its own. The second thing is the address, because order needs to be shipped to a specific address. So we need to have a address entity. Then there is a catalog sort of snapshot of a catalog, because catalogs keep on changing. There is a possibility if I have placed an order and the amount of that respective item was different at that point of time, and later it have been changed. So I need to have an exact snapshot of the same point of time, so the order doesn't change and it stays accountable for the future references. So this is one thing. So let's just move further. And with this order aggregate being created, you can think of this as a aggregate like cluster or sort of you can say domain aggregate. So where the order will be our root aggregate, and the rest address and the other things will be our value object. The reason why I'm saying this, because order can exist on its own, and other entities that we are going to access will be accessed or modified via order, because it can't be done separately. So let's just move, and further down the road you will get an idea what I'm talking about. So let's just move our order over here. So we have our order over here, and let me just create the other entities too. So I'm going to add a new class, and this is going to be order items. Basically, I need to keep track of the order items. So it is going to be order item. Inside order, there is going to be order, like multiple order items. Then I'm going to add address class. And one more thing which I'm going to add over here is catalog item order. So this is basically keeping track of the actual snapshot of that given point of time. So let's start with the order first, and once I move forward, you will get to know how each entity relate to each other. So with this order being available, what I'm going to do, I'm going to uh, mark or inherit from base entity, because we'll be using it with the iRepository pattern. And the second thing, I'm going to define an interface, because this is going to be a root object. So only we are going to interact with our, let me just move it over here. So we are only going to interact with this order, and via this order, the rest of the things will be modified. So let me just create an aggregate aggregate. Okay, so this aggregate root. So this is just in case if later down the road for the aggregate root objects we need any specific methods to be implemented, then we can have that. But at this point of time, I'm just creating this aggregate root and I'm keeping it inside the interfaces. So with this being done, let's just try to create specific properties which I'm going to use. Rather than moving with the properties first, I'll prefer to go with the constructor. So this time I'm going to create a public constructor, but this is going to be a parameterized constructor rather than a parameterless constructor. What I'm going to need over here to place an order, I do need a buyer ID. Second thing which I do need is an address. This is going to be a ship to address. And then we need a list of items because we need to have like the order items with us, and we are going to call these items. So this is one thing. Let's just try assigning this to the internal properties. So I'm going to create a property ship to address is equals to ship to address. This I'll be making this a public property. Let me just create other. I'm going to call this order items is equals to items, and the thing this is going to be buyer ID is going to be buyer ID. Let me just let me just create those properties first, and then we'll be looking into the rest of the things. Okay, so we have created our properties, and you can see, let me just move it on the top so you get to know. We just created this buyer ID, and this is going to be public. So this could have been accessed from outside the object. So our order can have this property exposed, so anyone can get the buyer ID of that object. And we are keeping the set to private. It can be like internally set, but can't be set from outside. So that's one thing. The second thing that we need is to have the address. Okay, one thing I done a bit wrong, like I should have used, let me just try it doing another way around. I should have used this one, not this one. Let me just not the internet. I need a public property. Okay, let me change it. So I'll be requiring address somewhat on a similar lines. Address is going to be accessible from outside, but it can't be set from outside. Just at the time of creation of the object or this order, this order address can be set. It can't be modified later. So that's one thing, because we have already placed the order, so it's not possible to having like the order being placed and payment being received and someone coming and changing the address without any specific reason or authorization. So that's the reason. So you will be getting an idea how using different properties and different access modifiers we are trying to protect, or we are trying to having access to our data. So we aren't building any any access mechanism using a custom code. We are just using the access modifiers and the public and the private properties and the read-only properties, and using that you will get to know how we can effectively structure our classes or objects so they can't be misused. So with this being done, let's move to this one. Let the order one, let me just move it up. So let me just move it up. I'm going to this. So this is going to be a private, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it private read only. The reason is that, let me just first create this, and then I'll be quickly letting you know why I have created this. Let me just okay. So the reason I'm keeping it read only, because once the order is placed, so the order items that we have received, we can't internally modify or change them, because it's not possible. If someone have placed it with two items the order, so internally our program might modify this order item or add any other item, so it's not possible. So we have this read only, and at this point of time only this can be modified or assigned to this. So this is again playing with this specific access modifiers and the properties. So with this being done, one more thing we'll be requiring is we have the private list, but there could be uh, we might be requiring access to see the list of items. So what we are going to provide now, we are going to provide a read-only collection. Let me just quickly read right over here. So this read-only collection is going to allow anyone see the order items. So let me just clear this. Is going to be order items with this. This is going to be a public property. So, and what we are quickly doing, we are assigning that order, we are making this list available to the outside world via this order item. So it's only a read-only collection, so anyone can see the items but can't modify those. So with this being done, one more thing we need to do. Let me just see what is the issue is. Okay, one thing, the reason you can see order is flagging some issue. This is a public class, and if I go to the address class, you can see this is an internal class. So internal classes are only available within the same assembly. Like if we are using a project, so it will stay available within the same project, but outside the project it is not going to be accessible. So what over here we are trying to do, we are trying to create an object which is public. So whenever someone is going or trying to add or create an order, so address should be of the same accessible level, because if we are trying creating order from any other project, so over there the address will not be accessible. So let me just change this to public and you'll get to know. You can see, let me just save. I think it's not being saved, so it should go away. Let me see why it's not going. Okay, one thing it's saying it's less accessible than okay. So one more thing, you can see this again says the same thing, and if I go to the order item, it is again of internal class. And you might know that internal is the default. When we are creating a class, the class is created using an internal rather than public. So with this public being changed, so let me just close this, and now you can see there is no error. So these are very pretty things, but once you get a good grasp over this, you will be facing no issues coding or trying to figure out why these things are happening. So with this being done, one more thing we need to restrict, like there is a provision to place order, but we also need to restrict our users, or basically the consumer of this code, to not place any order without having all these. So for this, what we are going to do, we are going to create a private order. So this means if someone tries to use the order or create an order without providing anything, it's not going to be accessible. So this is basically not accessible outside this like class. So if someone needs to create an order, they have to explicitly provide all these. It's taking a while, but I'm trying to address all these concerns. So hopefully these are going to benefit you. One more thing that we need to have over here, because we have our order and we do have all the items. So one thing, we can expose a public method, and we are going to call this total. And usually for any sort of currency calculation, we do use decimal because it do have a better number precision for decimal. So we are going to use decimal for all our currency conversions. So now I'm going to show you. You can see item dot unit price multiplied by item dot units. So units. So what does it do? It basically multiplies all the items that have been ordered with the actual number of items being ordered. Let's say you have ordered multiple fruits. So a banana, you can say a dozen. So it is going to multiply it with 12, and like 2 mangoes. So it is going to multiply it with 2. So with this being done, let's just try to return it. And let's just return the value. So we have just returned the total. So this being done, so let's focus on our address class first. It is going to be pretty simple. That's why I am moving to this. And this is going to be a value object. The reason, again, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be accessed via the root object, which is the order class. So let's just create a property. We need to create a string property, which is for the street. And then we are going to call the city, and we need a state. So let's just call string state, and then we have a country, and then we might be requiring a zip code. So let's just call the zip code, and what we need to have a constructor. This is again going to be a private constructor on a similar lines that we have done, because our address can't be like empty or having no street or a city. So it should have been created using a parameterized constructor. And this is, again, I'm just going to use the IntelliSense. You can see all the things have been filled. So I'm just using this street, city, state, country, and zip code. And this all the properties have been set. All these are publicly accessible. So against the address object, you can see the any city, state, or zip code which you need to see. So with this, we have done the address. So let's just move to the catalog items ordered first, and then we'll be moving to the order item, because order items are internally consuming this catalog item order. So let's just first create this class, and then we'll be moving. So let's just make this public class as we have done. So this is again a value object. A value object itself do not have an identity, and it do requires a root object to be used or accessible. We need to have a private constructor for catalog items on a similar line, what we are trying to do, because we can't have this being an empty one. And again, now we are going to create a public catalog item orders, and what we are going to accept inside that, we are going to accept a catalog item ID. like the ID of that catalog item. And then what we are going to accept, we are going to accept the product name, what was the product name, and the picture URI. So basically we are only capturing these three things over here. So this is the main item, because this is the ID that is going to stay same. And this, as this is the constructor, so let's just try setting it with the values. So let's have a catalog item ID, and we are going to set the catalog item ID over here. The second name is the product name, and the what else, the picture URI is equals to be picture. Let me just okay, this is wrong, so it should be picture, and one more thing, it should be camel case picture URI, and I should have modified this too. So with this being done, let's just call this picture URI, and let me change this name as well. No, let me just do it this way. And let me just create these properties. This is, should be public, so I'm keeping this. Let's just create a property, and this is going to be a read-only property, not just a read-only, but a private one. So let me just create this to this one. Let me just copy this and add over here. So you can see we have our catalog item order. Now we are moving to the actual order item, which is going to have or consume this catalog item order. So this way we can easily refer it inside this class. And over here we are going to use protected order item, and I'm going to quickly tell you why I have used protected instead of like private. So let me just first create the other constructor first, and then I'll be coming back to this topic. So let's just create the public order item, and what we are going to accept, we are going to accept a catalog item ordered, which is going to be called item ordered, which items have been ordered. Then we have a decimal, like not decimal unit price. And what else we need to have? We need to have units. So with this being done, let me just try doing this, and let me just change it to order item is equals to item order, and let me just change this to item order. And what else I need to do? This one, the thing like units is going to be units. So that's one thing. Let me just change this to this is going to be units. Let me just try creating this first, and I'll be quickly. I should have used not this one, but this one. So you can see we have three public properties. Let me just try moving it on the top. So let's just move it over here. Okay, so we have our class ready, and let's just try focusing why we have used protected instead of private. Because one thing is mandatory over here, the order item itself do have the item ordered, and it should have a unit price and a unit. So this should be a part of this, but there could be a possibility that later in our subclasses, which have been like a children or a derived class from this order item, this should be allowed to modified or called, there could be a reasoning that this order item might be derived from another class, which itself is going to be called a discounted order item or a special order item. So then that specific class can easily use this constructor. So this is the reason we are restricting it from the outside the class hierarchy, but we are allowing this change or constructor to be called from or within the hierarchy. So that was the reason for this. Hopefully you are able to understand this. So let's just move forward. Now with this order item being created, let's just move to the actual order repository from where we have navigated to the order, and then we have created these aggregated domains, the cluster, you can say, the root and the value domains. So now we have our order class over here, and we have the repository. But we can't use this repository because there is no complete implementation for this. So let's just try creating a specific complete implementation. So you might know that we have like 3 projects. One is the application core project, where we have our entities and our interfaces and our IOrderRepository interface is over here. But for the actual implementation of this repository, we have it inside the infrastructure project. So all the data related thing were over here. So let's just create a new class over here, and we are going to call this order repository, and we are going to make this public class, and we are going to implement IOrder repository. So let's just try implementing this. So in addition to implementing this IRepository interface, we will be inheriting the class from EFRepository as well. We are going to provide order. So with this being done, so you can see now our class is going to implement this interface, and it is like inheriting from a base repository, EFRepository. I can quickly navigate you. So this EFRepository do have some generic functions which we have already created. So let's just start implementing the methods that we have included in the IOrder repository. Let's just try implementing this. I think we don't need to implement all, so let me just remove this. Let's first have our public constructor, CatalogDbContext, and we are going to provide this to the base class. So with this being done, what we are going to do, we are going to implement the get by, or if I can quickly navigate you to this, you can see these are the 2 methods which we need to implement. So let's just try to implement those one by one. I'm going to call this public and order and get by ID with items. This is going to be int ID. The second thing, let me just create the structure of the function. And the second thing is going to be, let me just leave that. First implement the method, and then we'll be moving forward. Over here, what we are going to do, we do have the DbContext available with us. So DbContext, one thing which we need to modify, if you can see that we are receiving DbContext and we are passing it to the base class. So this DbContext, what we are trying to do, we are trying to access the DbContext within the EFRepository. So let's navigate to this, and you can see this DbContext itself is a private variable, and we won't be able to access it inside the child class. So let's just make it protected. And with this being change to protected, now you can see we are able to access this. So now we can, in our child class, we can access the DB context, and on top of that, what we can do, we can call orders. I think I need to define it first. So let me just define the orders first in the DB context. Let's just try navigating to this. Let me just add a DB set. So I'm going to add a DB set over here with the name like public DB set, and we are going to call this order. And again, what we are going to call it orders. I need to import this order. Let me just try importing it. The second thing, okay, one thing seems like order. Let me just navigate over here, and you can see one thing is being still messed out. Let me just resync the namespaces because namespaces are incorrect. So let me just change the namespace. Let me just sync the namespaces, and you can see now proper namespace is being used. Let me try seeking within the other projects if there is any need for changes, so you might do that. Okay, so with this being done, let me just save this. Let me just close the order. So with the order being there, we need to add one more DB set, and that is for the orders DB set, and that is going to be for order item. So we have added two because order item we are going to use like in the future. So I've already added that as well. So with this being done, now when we are going to, let me just remove this and quickly show you when I'm going to type dot. So you can see now orders are there. So with the orders being there, now let's just try to use include, and we are trying to get hold of O dot order items. So we are trying to eager load. Basically, what actually happens when we are trying to load any entity within entity framework. So by default, it lazy load all the related entities. And what does lazy load means? It doesn't fetch those entities on the same call. In case later, if those have been accessed, so then EF core do a subsequent call to fetch those entities. But by using this include, what we are trying to do, we are trying to fetch all the related records in a single go to save the round trip to the database. These things I have explained in my previous videos as well, but I thought of briefly explaining to give a refresher of this. And with this being done, so if I quickly try navigating to this, you will see the related item itself is order item. So under the hood, order items are going to get fetched. And one more thing, let me just do one thing, do it this way with orders include. And I'm going to add one more thing. I might need another property which is inside the order items, and I'm going to call this OI dot item order. And if I quickly navigate to this, so let me just go, you can see once that order items related thing have been fetched, so we have what included order items ordered. And what does it mean? This property leads to this catalog item order. So all these three like entities have been are going to be fetched in a single go. And then you can see first we have used include, and then we have like used then include. So include usually is for the first level of the entities or the related entities, and this is further deep down if there are other nested entities within this the order or the item that we have fetched. So with this being done, let's try to use or fetch the first item. And as we are going to build a simple method, so we are going to use default because this is a sync method. And what we are going to use, order, and then we are going to use order.id, because we do have the id with us. So based on that, we are going to fetch the only related order. So with this being done, you can see now we are able to get hold of this data. Possible land reference, we will see to it later. The second thing which we need to do, we do have another method which we have created within the definition, and that was for async. So let's just create the public task. So let me just clear the public task, and the similar way, the order. If I quickly show you using this, let me just copy, and you can quickly see how I'm going to modify this. I'm going to modify this order to task. And what else? There was the method name was item async. So this is being implemented. And what else? There was one more thing. We need to use the async over here. So you can see we are returning this using the async. Now we have our one more thing. Why it's complaining? Let me see. Let me first remove this. Let me first remove the unused spacing. Let me just quickly see if I've missed something. Okay, so you can see like there are a couple of methods still not being implemented, and certain methods are being implemented. What is actually happening? The interfaces do contain a definition of synchronous and asynchronous method. If I can quickly navigate to the parent class, you can see we have tried implementing the IRepository pattern, and over here what we have all the synchronous methods. But if I quickly show you and I go back, let me just close this. Within the IOrderRepository, you can see it's not only using the repository for the synchronous, but it do have the async repository. So we need to implement this within the base class as well. So let's try to modify our EFRepository. I anticipate this could be a bit complex and you might get confused. So don't feel overwhelmed with the amount of code, because we are trying to implement the domain-driven design and we are trying to implement certain complex things. So don't worry if you don't get the things in the first go. Try looking at the code in the repository and try navigating the code. And if you are not able to grasp it on the first go, try rewatching this video. And if still you feel any issue, feel free to share it within the comments. I will be addressing all type of issues in the upcoming videos if any issue needs to be addressed. So with this being said, let's just move towards implementing the EFRepository. So what we are going to do with the EFRepository, what we have with us, we have IRepository of type T already being implemented, but we need to do one more thing, and we need to implement IAsyncRepository. IAsyncRepository of T. So with this being done, let's just try to implement all this so we get all those methods below. Then we'll be implementing those one by one. You can see we have a method named get by ID, but one thing which we have witnessed, like this EFRepository is being used by child classes as well. So it means that at any given point of time, child class might prefer to override this. So what we are going to do, we are going to simply use a virtual keyword. So that this means in case if there is no definition in the child class, so this will be used. But if a child class do not have a definition, so this is going to be used. And with this being done, let's just add the other thing. Let me just do one thing. Let me just move this async method side by side. So this way we have synchronous and asynchronous method. next to each other, and that would be more relatable. So let me just move it over here. So you can see we have get by ID over here, and we have get by ID like async over here. And what we are going to do over here, we are going to do the same with this. So with this, we have made this mutual method in case someone wants to override, they can easily do that. And with this being done, we are going to simply use the somewhat similar code, and we are going to return await, because we are going to implement this as an async. And within the DB context, what we are going to use, we are going to use set or type T. This is going to bring the DB set of the type T, which in our case is the orders. And then we are going to use the find, because we are going to use the find async ID. One more thing I'm going to modify. Previously we were using single or default, so rather than using single or default, I would change this to like find, and we can do it simply using this. One thing you might have noticed that I have changed this find from like single or default to this find. So basically, find is more efficient when we do have a primary key. Over here, we are having our IDs. So IDs are supposed to be primary keys, and using that primary key, if that item is cached, so the item is being fetched from the cache rather than getting a database tray. And in case of any other keys other than the primary, so we should have used that single or default, and that is going to throw an exception if we are not able to find any item. So it's just a matter of choice, and based on what and where you can use both. If you have a primary key, so prefer to go with find, it will be more efficient. And if you have if you're trying to locate an item using any other property which are not primary key, so then go with single or default. So with this being done, let's just move ahead to the next item, where we have our list. So you can see the list is again somewhat in a similar lines. We are going to have this list all, and at this point of line, let's just leave this as is, don't use the virtual. So with this list, we are going to change it to list all, and instead of providing a list, I'm going to change it to IEnumerable. The reason is that when we are using that IEnumerable, the list, it was getting executed right away, and using this IEnumerable, we can defer the execution of that, and our data will not be fetched right away. So, and even if you want, we can hide the underlying implementation. So this can any different type could have been used. So rather than going with just list, we are using IEnumerable. Let's just change this to as enumerable. So with this change being done, let's just try moving the list function, list async, to the top. Where is the list? Let's just move this list all async to, and let me just cut it and move it near the list all. And over here, we are going to use this list of T. What we are going to do, we are going to make it async. Let me just change it first, and then I'll be quickly showcasing what I'm trying to achieve. Not this one. It should have been done over here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to return await with the DB context. set of t, and then to list async. One thing you might have noticed that I have used IEnumerable for default execution here when I'm like trying to provide this list. But over here, when I'm using this async, I have used the list. The reason is that when we try to call await, so what does this function do? It tries to fetches the data behind the scenes, and it awaits it, and while you can continue working on other thing. So with this, it's better to have it's better to use the list, and once the data has been fetched behind the scenes, so it's going to provide you in a form of a materialized list rather than going with IEnumerable that you are going to get on demand, or when you are going to call specific to items, or trying to iterate that. Okay, so let's start modifying this list, which is accepting ISpecification. So I'm going to change this to IEnumerable, and you can see that we already have query results with includes over here. If you can recall, with this includes, we have aggregate function, which is getting applied on all the includes that are part of this. So if you can quickly see this, this includes is a list of expressions. So which EF4 is going to use to include all the relevant entities. So whatever being part of this, this will be included, and this aggregate will build a chain. So hopefully you are able to follow along with me. In case if you are not still able to follow, once I'll be quickly doing the code, you will be able to grasp it. Moving further, we have to have a list. There is an async method for the list. So let me just bring that up. Let me just copy it up, and I'm going to move it over here. List all async. Then we have the list with a specification, and then we are going to implement this async. So over here, as you know that we are going to use this as an async, so I'm adding async, and this is again called async list. So over here in this list async, what we are going to do, we are going to implement somewhat similar curable include. Let's just use this var queryable result with include. So we are doing somewhat similar thing, and then we are going to use spec.include is equals to specs. This is somewhat similar to this one. So specs.include. What else we are going to add? We are going to call somewhat the aggregate method on a similar lines. So let me just use that aggregate method. This is the aggregate method. This is going to again accept the DbContext.set of t, and over here again on a similar lines the way we have used as curable. So somewhat similar, and then what we are going to do, we are going to use a lambda function to provide all the includes or chain all the includes. So let me just do it this way, and let me just call. It seems like something is missing. Let me see to it. What am I missing? We have a curable spec.include, and then we have some similar aggregate and the curable. Okay, sorry, one thing I was missing. This is supposed to be a function. So this include, and what else we are going to do? We are going to call current.include, and we are going to pass that include. So include this way. So on a similar lines, we are going to do this, and then what we are going to do, we are going to return with await. And what we are going to return, the curable results will include, and we are going to add a where clause based on the spec criteria, and then we are going to provide a list async because we are using async await over here. So this list being added. Moving to the next thing, our add async function. So this is the add. So let's just move the add async above. Let's just cut it off from over here, and I'm going to use it over here. So with that add async, again async needs to be added, and I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to use a simple await first, await and DbContext and save changes, and this time save changes async, and I'm going to return the entity. So this entity is being returned back after getting saved. Then we have a update one. So let's just, rather than using the delete, let me just move the update one on top. Let's just get it from here. Let me just move it over here. So with this update, let me just remove this. What we are going to do over here, if you can recall, on top we have the update, but here we need to retrieve the entity state, and you need to change the entity state. So let's just do this quickly. That is state, and this is going to be entity state dot modified. And on a similar lines, instead of calling that like, we are going to use await with async changes, and you can see async have been automatically added. And now comes the delete function. We have our delete over here. So let's just quickly implement that. So we have our EFRepository being completed. So let me just add async over here. And what else I'm going to do? I'm going to use the DbContext, not this one, the one which we have made protected in our base class, and then the set, and we are going to retrieve that. And what we are going to do, we are going to remove. So this time I think remove, and what I'm going to use, I'm going to use that entity. That entity is going to be removed, and what is going to be done over here, I'm going to use await with save changes async. So we have pretty much completed our EFRepository. So now going back to the actual order implementation, let me just close the unnecessary one. So if I can quickly hover, so see what methods are missing. It just says like it doesn't implement IRepository order list, and there are a couple of other. So seems like some things have been missed out, or we might need to change this. So let me just quickly see what I have done wrong over here. Just give me a minute. Okay, so you are facing this error, and this says that there are certain signatures which are not matching. So let's just quickly go to this and navigate to the IRepository. And the reason is that because we have changed certain things which were previously part of this. So we have changed this to IEnumerable, and also we have changed this to IEnumerable. So let's try to save it and see. So you can see it quickly got removed, and we are now having a proper order repository. So with this order repository being completed, I'm just trying to close the unnecessary one. Let me just add this one. I'm trying to make it as clear as possible. Okay, so coming back to this, you can see this implementation is over here. And let's just go and see if we do have our proper implementation for that customer order specification. So it seems we have this as a partial one, and it's part of the controller which we are supposed to move to the specification folder. Let me just try to move it, and this time hopefully I will not this way. I should have. Okay, let me just delete the copied one. I'll remove it later. If I press shift, okay. So if you're moving a file from one project to another and you want that to be moved, so you need to press shift while moving. So I just pressed shift and that have been moved, and you can see my specification for the customer order is here. Let me just try to do one thing, sync up the namespaces. So we have a proper namespace, and let me just change this class name to public. So let me just clear this. We are going to have this customer order specification, and what we are going to accept, we are going to accept a string, and the string is going to be buyer ID. So buyer ID, because order is going to be tagged with a buyer, and we need to have a somewhat similar property. So I'll be using a private. Let me just use the buyer ID, and I'm going to assign this to buyer. The second thing I need to have, and I need to use that specification, the add include method, but let me create those first and then I'll be moving to that. Let me just first generate this like a read only field, and this name should have been removed. So we have our this one, and one more thing which I forgot to implement was this, like I should have used ISpecification for order. This will enforce the signatures that I need to use, and all I need to implement all the method. Let me just try to. So you can see this ISpecification is asking me to implement those. So let's just implement interface. So you can see our constructor is still same, but we have got additional code for expression and the list and the add include. So now I can quickly add, like add includes, and what we are going to do, we are going to pass o dot order items. So order items will be included, and the second thing which we are going to use the include over here. This is going to be a string literal, but we haven't added that. So let me just figure these out first, and then I'll be moving to that. So one thing which I need to do for the criteria is to set the criteria first. Let me just close this up. So for this criteria, what I need to do, I need to have that order, and what I'm going to do, I need to, using the lambda function, order.buyer ID should be equal to the buyer ID which we have received. So this is the expression. And the second thing which we need to do is the expression. We just need to do we need to get a new. So let's just use this one, and with this being done, we need to do one more thing. Our add include, we should implement it properly rather than this. So let's just call includes dot add. So in the list we are adding the include expression. So that's being done. One more thing which is not part of this, and we need to add, we need to have a public list of strings. So this time, instead of those specific expression tree based thing, we need to have string based, I would say, so we call it string based include. So not this one. the one which we are going to add over here. So let me just add this string first, and let's just call this include string. Let's So one more thing which we are going to do over here is to use add includes, and it's more of a navigation property, a string based navigation property, and we are going to use order items dot item ordered. If I can quickly show you, let me just navigate this item ordered itself is part of like order, and if I navigate to this, you can see there is a item ordered property. So based on this string, we are trying to like include all these. Let me see, cannot convert from a string. Okay, so okay, I think I should need to include additional method. So this should be like let me just do an overload. Yeah, I was missing the overload because let me just call this includes, and this time I'm going to pass this include, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this include string dot add, and this is going to include the include string. Let me just change this to include string to have some more clarity on this. So what does it do? When I call this is going to call this one, and when I call this is going to call this one. So with this being done, let me just see if something is being missed out or not. I'm going back to this. What issue I'm facing? So cannot convert from full specification. Seems like okay, this one is still there, so let me just delete this first. Now hopefully we are able to get it. So you can see now it's referring to the one which we have created. So let's move to the next line. Let me just remove it to have a clear understanding what we are trying to do. So we have our orders with us, which we have pulled from the order repository using a list async method, and we have provided certain specifications, and the specification is that we have provided the buyer name. So buyer name is being provided. So then what we are going to do, we are going to create a model. So we are going to create a view model, and this is for the orders. So like let me just use the order which we have just pulled, and what we are going to do, we are going to select, and within the select, what we are doing inside that, we are trying to create the order view model. Dot order view model. So I think we haven't created the models as of yet. So let me just create those first, and then we can further do something. Order view model. So let me just create this. Okay, not this way. So generate. So I've generated a order view model, which I'm going to move to view models folder. Let me see where the view models folder is. So order view model, and I've just moved this to the order view model folder. So let me just first create this. So you might be like wondering that we have started with this order controller, but still we are not very far into it. Just a few lines of code within the order controller, but we have to modify and do so many things within the files or different files. So you can think that when we are like building some complex systems using some sort of domain driven design and using patterns, So we have to set the foundations. So whatever we are doing over there, this is sort of a foundational setup. Once we are done, when we will be doing it for the other things, it would be very easy to reuse and it will be a one-time investment. So don't feel like overwhelmed that we have reached just a few lines of code in the like order controller, and still we are left with so many things to be done. So don't worry on that part. So let's just move to the order view model. So let me navigate to the order view model, and let me just add a couple of properties which are we are going to provide to this view model. So I'm going to use the order number first because not this code. So let's just use a order number. What else we are going to use? Let me just, I think there is some additional thing. Okay, one thing I'm doing wrong. I should have done it outside the constructor. I was assuming that this is a class. So let me just remove this. Let me remove this constructor for now because this is more of a default thing. So within our view model, we have our order number, and then we need to have date or date time offset. So let me just include that public of this one. I missed it again. So let me just do it in a proper way. Date time offset, and we are going to call it order date. Okay, so you have seen that we have used date time offset instead of using time. Basically, date time offset keeps track of the time zone from UTC. So it's for global systems where we might be having different time zones because your order, if you are having a website and order is placed on your website, so it should be like having multiple time zones. So capturing this using offset is preferred. So with this being done, let's just move ahead. What else we can add to this? So with this two items being added, let's just add a total because in our order, we would be requiring a total. So let's just, as you know, that for money related thing, we are using a decimal. And so we have the total, and then we need to have a status. The status is basically what's the status of the order. Is it like being shipped, it's being pending, or in approval state? So we are going to use a string and then status. We could have used enums, but for this point of time, I'm just using a string. Then I'm going to use an address, and this is where you can see our value objects are coming from. I'll be quickly navigating to that. Let me just use this as a shipping address. Shipping address. So we have this property, and what else we can add? We need to have a list of orders, items, not orders. Basically, order. This is itself an order. We need to provide a list of order items. So what we can have inside this, we can have a public and list of order item view model. So this way we are going to return the order items, and what, not this one, and we are going to call this order items. So let's just add this view model again, and this let me just not this way, let me just generate this file, and you can see we have a file, and let's just have our order items view model. In that we need to have the product ID because every order do have items, and every item view possesses a product ID. So let's just use that. What we are going to do, we are going to use a product ID. With this being done, we are going to need a product name. With the product name, we need to have a unit price because every product is going to have a price. Not this one. Let me just use the decimal. Unit price. What more, there could be a possibility of having a discount on a product. So let me just use the discount. Again, we are going to use the decimal because discount is again in terms of amount. So with the discount being applied, this product like which is being ordered, there could be multiple units of this have been ordered. So let's just use proper init and units. And what else we need to use? We need to use a picture URI. So let's just use the string and a picture URL. So we have our order view model and order item view model with us. So let me just close these and save this. And now you can see we have this accessible, and let's just continue further on that. So with this view model being created, it would be very easy for us to set certain things. Like IntelliSense will surely help us. So order date, for order date, what we are going to do, we are going to use the order date. Order date or dot order date. This should be, let me see why IntelliSense is not helping us. Okay, so as you can see, we have missed, as you can see, we are not able to locate any order date. Let me just try to find. We are able to find or locate order item, but there is no date. So let me just add a date over here. Let me just add a public date time offset, and I'm going to call this order date. I'm just saving this way. Okay, so as this is a public property, so let me just do this. It should be a property, so I'm going to use it this way. Let me just have it over here. We are going to have this as a property, and so now once we try to use this, so you can, let me just try to figure out. You can see that we have the order date available to us. The second thing that we have is order items. So what we are going to do, we are going to pass order items, whatever the order items we have. And again, there could be a possibility there are no items, or it might be null. It should not be, but we are just checking it, and we are going to call a select. So with this select, and what we are going to do over here, we are going to call order item, and where over here, then we are going to use new. So this time we are going to use it. Previously we have used order view model, and now we need to add the order item view model. Let me just move it a bit up so we can clearly see it. And let's just use the order item view model. And this time again, we are going to have something like this. Let me just do this way. And within this order item model, whatever we are getting, so we are going to set that. So within this, if I go with discount first, because there is no discount, so I'm hard coding this as 0 for now. Then a picture URI. what we are going to use, we are going to use the URI composer, and we are going to provide the OI dot item order dot picture URL to this. Then we have the product ID. What are the product ID? Again, we are going to pass OI dot item order dot product. I think we have used catalog. Yeah, catalog ID. And then is the product name. So again, OI dot product name, OI dot, I think, name. Just give me a minute. There should be, okay, sorry, I should have used this, the product name. And then we have a unit price. And again, OI dot item order dot unit price. Let me see what the price is. Do we have it or not? Let me just try to figure out. No, sorry, it should be part of OI dot unit price. So basically, there were like couple of things part of this item order, because product ID and name was and picture was captured over here. And within the order item, we have the unit price, and the unit is at the same level, OI dot units. So whatever we are going to do with this, like let's just provide back a list. I'm going to convert this to a list. And now I'm proceeding with the actual order number, and this is going to be o.id. And shipping address is going to be o.ship-to-address. And the last, I think, not the last one, we are going to have this as a hard coded. I've just told you that we haven't used any enum as of yet, so let's just do this way. And the last thing is o.total. So this is the total function within the order which we have created. So with this being done, let's just return the view model. So you can see we have created a view model, order view model, and inside that we have a list of items, and we are returning this back to the view. So with this being done, let's see. I think this is a method, so I think I should have got this. Yeah. And what else? Let me see. One more thing, we have created this orders page. So this page, when we are going to land on this specific page, we can have our list of orders, but we need to have a detailed page where we can see all the details. So let's just create another action. So this was the index one. So let me just add a HTTP GET function. So not the function, but basically HTTP GET word or action, we would call it. And inside that, what we are going to capture, the order ID. Basically, order ID is being provided to capture the detail against that respective order. And what we are going to do, we are going to use public async. We are going to use task IAction result, and with this details, I'm going to use order ID. Let me just use the proper one. Let me just do this way. Have this. So let's try to do somewhat similar thing. You need to get an order first, var order, because this time we are fetching a detail, so we just need one order, not the list of orders. And we are going to call the repository, and now we are going to use get item with get by ID with items async, and we are providing the order ID, so it's going to return just a single order. Then we need to have a view model. View model is going to be somewhat similar, and within that we need to have our order date. Orders dot order date is over here. Then we need to have a order, not this way, like order items. I think I missed something. Okay, comma is missing. So order items, and this is from the order which we have just pulled. We need to pull the order items, and we are going to use a select on a similar lines which we have used in a previous method. And over here we are going to use the order item. Let me just move this so we can have a clarity. Okay, let me just move it up. So you can use y lambda function, and now we need to have this order view model. Inside that we need to have our items. So let me just quickly set those up. Discount is equals to 0, and let me just try to copy it up from the up. So if we can use that, so let's just copy that. Let me just, so discount is there. Rest of the things I'll just copy it. What else is missing? Seems like something page not in the right manner. Okay, so this is supposed to be right. It seems perfectly fine. What else I'm missing? Okay, I got it. I need to convert it to list because with the select we need to provide a list. So let's just convert this to the list. With this list being available, so let's just use the comma, and moving forward we need to add on similar lines the order number and this and that. So let me just copy this one, order number, shipping address, all to be copied from here. What else we are providing, because we are using order over here, so let's just use the order. Copy this over here, and so you can see we have our order over here, and let me just return this view. So let's just return view and view model. So we are able to create two methods. One is the index one, and the one is the detail one. Let's try rebuilding this, where we are and what sort of issues we are facing, so we get to know how far we have reached while doing this. Okay, this like a video is a bit long, and I anticipate that because there are certain complex things and I can't split those into separate parts because we need to show orders in a single row. So bear with me. And what are we like? What does an implement interface IRepository to list? So let me see. What does it mean? What it is trying to do? The list. One change we have done within the asynchronous function. So let me see if that's correct or not. We have changed this list to list all. So let me just change it inside the IRepository interface to list all. Now try rebuilding and see what other errors we are going to face. So again, it says like this is not doing this. So list all is there. I think this is what was this? Let me quickly see. Let me just check it out. List all is there, and list of ISpecification is there. So we have implemented this as well, list of all, and list is there. So on which one this is complaining? Let me just try to figure it out. Let me just do it again. So okay. So in this brand repository, we are try to fix it and see if we can use this. list all. Let's just try rebuilding again. I'm just trying to fix the error. I'm not expecting this to work perfectly fine. Previously, we were returning a list. Now this is enumerable. So obviously account won't be there. So let's just remove this. So when we were using list, that was a property, and with enumerable, we are having a function for this. So with this being done, let's try looking at the other error. What is this? So let's just use the list all for now. Let's see if it works. I will try to run it and see. So at least we are able to build it. So let's see how it works and what we get out of it. So you can see basically it says the entity type address requires a primary key to be defined. So what we have actually done, we have set up like address, but for this respective entity, we haven't like mentioned anything within the DB context. So let's just go to that. Let me just go to address first. So we need to define a primary key for that. So you can see that we are facing this error that address requires a primary key. But you know that we have discussed that we are working on aggregate domain entities, and address itself is not an independent entity. Basically, this is like owned by the what I would say order. So you can recall if I go to this orders, not the orders one, but the cat DB context, catalog DB context, catalog DB context. Over here, you can see we have only defined two data DB sets, order and the order item, but we haven't defined or configured address because we need to tell entity framework that address is not a like independent entity. So we are not going to add a DB set for that. Instead, we are going to configure using a function which I'm going to do over here. So let's just do one thing. If you can previously call for these entities, we have set up like configure methods. So let's just for those two entities, window dot entity, and this is for the order one. We are going to have a method which we are going to call configure order. We are going to create it in a while. And the second thing, let me just copy it. We are going to call this configure order item. Let me just quickly create those, generate this method, and then let me generate this method. So these are basically the private void methods. Let me just move them to the bottom to have clarity. So let me just move it to the bottom, and we can have it over here. Now what we are going to do, we are going to tell the entity framework that this address entity is being owned by the order. So what we are going to do over here, we are going to use the builder, and for this specific entity, we says that it's own one, and which one is this? O goes to O dot ship to address, because this is the address one. So this is one, and somewhat on a similar lines, we need to do it for the order item as well. So let me just copy that, and for this we have another value object. So I'm not configuring it right away. So let's just remove this. Let me show you the other error first, and then we'll be doing that. So let me just start this, and this time I'm expecting another error. So this time you can see the entity type catalog item ordered itself requires a primary key. If I can quickly show you, in the order aggregate, only order is the root one, and these are the value objects, address, and this like catalog item ordered as well. And this one is the part of order item. So let's just have this order item included over here. So this time I'm going in the for the order, I have added this ship to address. For this order item, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that it owns one. And what does it own? It do own, I'm going to use I because this is an item. You could have used any other keyword, and item ordered. So I think I should have used order items, not the order items. I think, let me just quickly check if this is, no, not this one. Something is being, okay, no, I'm doing something wrong. I should have used order item because this is, and one more thing, let me see if, okay, something wrong has been done. It should be here, and the order should be over here, and order item should be over here. So that was one thing. And the second thing is, which I'm missing for order, let me just copy this line. I'm just doing it in a right manner. Let me just cut it from over here, and let me just quickly tell you what I'm doing. Basically, the first one is configuring the order, and it's receiving the order. So in that we have a ship to address, and over here we do have a items ordered. And if I can quickly show you, item ordered is of type catalog item ordered. So this entity is owned by order item. So this way we are going to eliminate this error. I could have resolved it in a quick single go, but just to let you know. So let me just restart this and see what else we are going to face. I don't know which. Okay, sorry. This should be order item. So let me just try to run again and see what happens. Okay, so we are able to successfully log in and see. Still, you might recall that we haven't created any sort of views, and so we are expecting that to fail. So let's just try to add the basket. I'm trying to add a basket item to the basket, and I'm trying to check out. Rather than doing this, let me just try logging in, because once we are logged in, I can see this my orders page. And let me just add some item and then go to checkout. So I have placed an order, and let's try to see order. So you can see, like, once I try to click that, so there are like a couple of issues which I have faced. Ambiguous match exception. So it's just try to see that where do I land, either on like index or detail, which action, or either I go to this one. So let's just try to fix it. So you can see that we are facing this error. So let's just go to our project. And one thing which we need to add over here, we need to add the specific authorize. One thing we need to do is to add a route. And with route, what we are going to add to the controller name, controller, and then we have the action. So that's one thing. And let's just try to see. There's one more thing I need to add, but I'll be adding it later. And let's see if it properly matches or not. Let me just go to the orders. So you can see the issue have been fixed, but we are facing something else. And basically this is like IOrder is not being resolved because we haven't like added it in the program like program.cs. So let me just quickly go to the program.cs file. Let me just go to the program.cs file, and within that we need to modify or add. Let me just go to the services. I need to add a scope. Let me just make this. So let's just do it right after the basket service. Let me just use the builder.services.add scope, and this time for IOrderService. Let me just IOrderService. The IOrderService, which issue we are facing. I'm sorry, I think I need to get the right one. Basically, it's IOrderRepository. It's not able to resolve that repository, and for that repository, we do have a order service. Not the order service. Again, I'm missing certain things. Not the order service. It should be repository because there is a actual repository which we have just created. So let's just try to run and see. So I'm just trying to navigate to this, and there are like no, I would say, views. So let me just quickly add the views. Let me just go to the controller or controller, and with this being done, so let me just add the view. Add view. For this, we are going to call this index view, and the second is going to be the detail one. Let me just close this and try adding the second, and then we will be looking into the HTML for those. And this is going to be a detail view. So we have our views. So just to pace up the things, I'll be copying the HTML and we'll quickly walking you through with those HTML. So let me just try to copy that. Okay, so I have copied the code and I'll be quickly showcasing you. So we have our index CS.html. What it's going to do, it's going to receive this order view model which we have just created, and it's going to show my order history. And over there in the title, we are going to display this. And then we have an article section, and within that section, we will be listing order numbers, date, and total section. And if the model do have like any items, so we are going to iterate over those, and we are going to list those all with this order name, date being displayed. One thing is we make a sort of a hyperlink using a tag, and this time we are allowing us to navigate to the details page of the orders catalog, that action that we have just created. And what we are passing the order number inside this ASP route order ID. And the second thing, like if we are going to do this, so with this we have been using this submitted, and what else we have over here. So with this being done, let's move to the detail one. It is going to show the order detail along with the order. So basically a single order on top and then the order details. Over here, what we are going to do, we are going to showcase the order details, and then we need to show the details of the order items. Let me just try navigating and see what's the issue. Over here, you can see this is a public property and it should be Pascal case rather than the camel case. So hopefully this is going to be fixed. Let's try running this and see what happens. We are going to face certain errors. So let's see what error list. Not any error. So let's just try. Does it do? Okay, let me just change it. So anywhere in the code where if we have this, so let me just rectify this and let's see how things are going to work. So we have this running. Let's see what happens. Let's just go to the orders and you can see there are no orders. What actually happens, because let's try placing an order and see if we are able to see. I'm adding this and then still there is no order. The reason is that once we are adding an item to the basket, so at this point of time, when we click checkout, we are doing nothing to add this order to the orders like a repository or something. So there is no specific service using which we are adding this order to the order list. So even we check out, we have no orders over here. So we need to modify our basket. So let's just move to the basket controller. So within our basket controller, let me just go to the basket controller. Let me just close this, and the basket controller. Let me just collapse those over here. So we need to modify the checkout, but before doing that, I need to do one thing. I need to have access to a service which is related to the orders. But you can see we do have a basket service available to us, but there is no sort of IOrder service. So let's just try creating a IOrder service, and I'm going to call this order service. Let's just expand this. And here now, let me just click this, and I'm going to have this like order service is equals to order service. So let me just do one thing, create an interface in a new file, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a read-only IRepository. And let me just see the order service. Where is it? So let's just move it to the interfaces. Let me just move it to the. Let me see if we do have another interface folder. We do have interface folder. Okay, so you can see for the we do have our interfaces within the web for iBasket service. I'm going to move it over here. So we have our IOrder service. So let's just first identify what sort of methods we are going to expose over here. So let's just create a definition for those first. So within this IOrder service, what we'll be requiring? We'll be requiring basically a create order async. What's the reason? Because once we are adding this item to the checkout, at that point of time, we need to add or create this order. So let me just add a create order async. So this way orders will be created, and then we will be able to see those inside that view or detail page. So what we are going to provide a basket ID against which the order is getting created, and the second thing is the address. And what is the address? We are going to provide the shipping address to that. And what else? Let's just keep this here, and we have the definition ready. I'm not currently focusing on the implementation. I'm going back to the basket controller. First, I'll be trying to add code over here. Then I'll be going for the complete implementation. So we have created order service. interface, basically the definition. Now we need to implement, or I would say, use the method inside the checkout. So once we are trying to check out, we are going to create a specific order. So you can see we have already created a basket. So like get basket view model async, it's already there. Let's just try to like use this. Let me just rename this to basket view model for easy reference. Let me just name it basket view model. That's one thing. And the second thing, what we have just created, like before, like checking out, what we need to do, we need to have this order service. Let me just use await, and then we need to use basket service, not the basket service, the order service, which we have just injected the order service. And what we are going to call, we are going to create order async, and what we are going to provide to it, we are going to provide to it the basket view model, not the service. Basket view model dot id. So we are providing the basket id, and for the second thing, we need to provide the address. And over here, as we haven't captured any address as of yet, so instead of using that, what I'm going to do, let me just remove this. Let me add the using, because I don't want this to be very long. So rather than using this, let me just add the using statement. I'm just moving it to a new line to have more clarity. So with the address, let's just add a dummy address. And what we are going to use, let's just call the street, the city, and the state. I'm just using the same names instead of using any specific one. And the zip code is like 123. Let's just try closing this. So we are providing address object and this. And with this being done, what we can do, we can like delete the basket, because once our order has been placed, so rather than having that basket, once we click the checkout, we should have like deleted the order. So for that, we need to have or either modify our basket service. So let's just go to the basket service, and there is a provisioning to have like checkout and transfer basket, but instead we need to add a delete basket option. So let me just add that option. So let me just add over here task and delete basket async, and then we are going to have the basket ID. In addition to this, we might be like changing this transfer basket to the transfer basket async. So we can use the async method, and for this one more method we need to introduce. So let's just add task set quantity. So set quantity, when we'll be implementing it, then we'll be looking to see what we are trying to achieve over here. So let's just use the basket ID, and we are going to use a dictionary having a string and integer for quantities. So quantities. So we do have a definition of like 2 or 3 methods, and let's just move back to the service and try deleting. What we are trying to do, we are trying to delete that respective basket. I'm going to delete basket async. So you can see like after creating an order, we are deleting it. And even we don't need to use the checkout. So let's just use this, and instead of doing the checkout, we can set the quantities before like doing checkout. Let's just comment this out. Instead, we are going to set the quantity, and we are going to provide the model ID and the items. So let's just use, or just leave it for now. We'll be looking into this later. So with this being done, let's try and see what actually happens when we try to check out. It's getting failed. The reason is that iBasket doesn't have a definition. Okay, so we need to change it to async, and await should be here. So with this being done, let's try running again. Okay, so you can see the iBasket service. Okay, we have, so let's just try implementing the method because we have added two more functions, and you can see these are over here. So let's just let them stay over here. And what I'm trying to achieve, I'll be using a check over here. Let me just log in, and then I should go add an item and basket. So you can see IOrderService itself is not getting resolved because we do not have a concrete implementation. So let's just add a concrete implementation for that order service. So let's just try to implement the service. So within our services folder, let's just create the order service. So let me just add the class, and I'm going to name it order service. My order service. So we are going to implement this interface, and let's just try implementing this. And before going to implement inside this, let me just add a public constructor. And within this public constructor, what we are going to pass, we are going to use an IAsyncRepository for basket. So we'll be requiring a basket over here. So that's the reason we are using the basket repository. Let me just call this basket repository. And then we have a catalog item. We might be requiring the catalog item. So again, I'm using async repository, and I'm going to use catalog item. And with the catalog item being there, let's just call this item repository. And then we need to use IAsync repository for the order, and we need to have the order with us. So I'm going to call this the order repository. So repository. Now the last thing, let me just do it on a new line so we can have it properly aligned. And the last thing we need to have IURI composer, which we are using for our like picture URL. So let's just call this URI composer, and inside that, let me just do this. And first, let me just create IRepository. IRepository is equals to order repository, sorry, not the IRepository, it's order repository. Then I'm going to have the basket repository is equals to basket repository, and then I'm going to have the item repository, and which is equal to item repository. So with this being done, let's just generate these feeds. This is going to be a read only. This again, let me just create this for this. Let me just create this as well. So you can see we have injected these services, and now we can proceed with this create order async. So within this, what we are going to do, we are going to have our basket. First, we need to pull the basket because at any given point of time, we do have the basket available. So let's just use await and get hold of the basket because we are using the async repository. So within the basket repository, get ID by async, and we are going to provide this ID. So you can quickly see that we have previously we were having only synchronous repository for basket, but with the EF4 implementing these methods, we are able to implement, or you can say use it inside the basket repository. If I can quickly show you, you can see this is the interface of IAsyncRepository, and if I try navigating to the implementation, you can see we are landing on the EF repository instead of going to any specific basket repositories implementation. So it's basically using the you can say a parent implementation. So that's the you can say the beauty of using these type of domain driven design and effectively using object oriented programming. So hopefully you are getting along with me. With this being done, now we need to pull the items, and we are going to get a new list of order items, list of order items, and then what we are going to do for each item. Over here, we are going to iterate for all the items that are inside the basket. We are going to iterate those, and once we are going to iterate, we are going to add a specific catalog item. So what we are going to do, I'm going to use a catalog item, and what I'm using await and item repository dot get by ID async. So what we ID async, and over here instead of item dot catalog item ID. So you can see we are putting the catalog item within the basket item, and with this being done, we are trying, well, then we are going to get or fetch the items that are ordered, and this is going to be a new catalog item ordered. And with this being created, let's just try to use the catalog item dot ID, and we are going to use the catalog item dot name. And what else, we need a picture URI as well. So let's just use the catalog item dot picture URI. So we have this, we have our catalog item ordered, and the last thing is the order item. So let's just call this order item, and over here we are going to create a new order item, and over here inside that we are going to pass the item ordered, and then we are going to set the unit price and the item dot quantity. So we are basically setting this order item. What we are going to do then, within the items, we are going to add this order item. So you can see that we have things move from this inside this order item, and we have added this. Let's see if it's not now. What could be the reason? Because we do have the order item. So why is it saying so? Item dot add. Let me quickly see. Order item 2. I think I'm missing something. Okay, there is one thing which I've done wrong. It should be like order item, and you can see now it's working fine. So I should have used the correct one. And now I'm going to create an order, which is a new order, and which is going to accept the basket dot buyer ID, and what else, the shipping address is going to be used, which have been passed, and the items that we have created. So this is the our order. And then what we are going to do, we are going to add it to the order repository. So let's just add async and the order. So now we have a concrete implementation. So let's just try using this, and I think I need to add it in the program.cs file. So let me just go and over here, let me just copy this for IOrderService. I am going to use the order service. So let's just try to run it and see what happens. So you can see that it says some services are like lifetime scope is facing some issue and it's not able to activate the service. So let me just try to figure it out. So you can see one thing is missing, and this is like IAsyncRepository is not getting resolved. So let's just see. You can see previously for IRepository, we have added this EFRepository. So again, for this IAsyncRepository, we are going to use this IAsync. We are going to use this EFRepository. Both are getting resolved to this. So let me just try to run this now and see how it works. Let me just add an item to the basket. Let me just click the checkout. So you can see an order have been created, basket have been deleted, and okay, sorry, I haven't implemented this. So let's just implement this first. So let's just remove this, and what we need, not this one. What we are going to do, we are going to remove this, and over here we need to pull the basket first. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this basket, and let's just use the basket service, basket repository, and get by ID async. And we are providing the basket ID. So once we get that basket, what we are going to do, we are going to call the basket repository again, and we are going to call the delete async for the basket. So you can see we are calling the delete async, accepting of the basket will be found. So let me just quickly see. Okay, I think I need to provide let me just go to the implementation. So you can see that we are missing these async definition. So let's see how we have defined. We have defined this as a IRepository. So we should have defined this as async. So async repository. Now let's see if the issue have been resolved or not. So let me just try to see. This issue have been resolved, but we might face other issues. So let's just try to rebuild and see what else we have started facing. So that there are like a couple of issues we have started facing. So one thing is that I need to change this too. So this being changed, What else we need to do? Let me just rebuild and see what issues we are facing. So let me just change this to async with await being here. So let me just see this, why we are facing this. There are a couple of modifications required. Okay, so we need to get the list first. We need to await and get the list, and on top of that we can apply that. So you can see it's working now. And let's just try to resolve other. So let's just use await with the, not this one. What else we need to do? Let's just add this using the await. So let's just change this to not to this one. I prefer to use a proper await. And what else? Let's just update this as well. There are a couple of other issues, so let me just quickly fix those. Delete async. What else? This is the list of async, and on a similar lines, I need to use await. I need to have this. We need to get the list first, and on top of that, we can use that. So repository is not null here. What was it like? Basket repository. We are going to use the list async. And what else? Let me try to rebuild it. This one is supposed to be, I should use await. Why is it changed so? Application core entities basket to application core entities basket. Okay, so we need to use the checkout. Okay, so you can see that this is saying or complaining. The reason is that this is itself is an async function, but basket that we are trying to pass over here, and we should have awaited over here. So if we do not await, there is a possibility that this code is going to get triggered and we have our basket being empty. So let's just see, and you can see the basket, this issue have been resolved. So moving further, let's just go to this one, and basket specs. I think the same is the case. Let's just see what issue. Basket repository is not null here. Let me just try to get hold of this. So we are facing this issue that this is saying that basket repository is not null here. So the reason that we are facing, basically we haven't used the async over here. So you can see this have been resolved. And if the market is, the basket is like null, so it says that we can't return this. So we can just use this return. So it's going to fix that. And for this updated task, what we are going to do, so let's just move over here. Let's just use await. Await. Update async basket. Let me see what issue it is providing. So followed by the object expression. So we are facing this error because what it says is a async method that return task. So a written keyword must not be followed. So we don't need this written keyword, and it will work without this. So let's just try to run this and see where we are and how it works. So let's see how it works. We are going to log in first. Let's just log in. Let's just try to add something to the basket, and we are facing some issue. So I think we have missed something. So let's just try to figure this out. And if I quickly try adding this, so what it's going to do, it's going to add this to the basket, and the user is signed in. It will try to get the basket, and if it doesn't find a basket, it will try to add that basket. So let me just try navigating further. So there is no basket, so it will try to create the basket, and you can see that within the repository we have a add async method. Over here you can see that it is calling the DbContext save async changes, but nothing have been added to the DbSet. So that's the issue over here. So what we need to do, we need to get the DbContext, and we need to use the set with the same type T. And what we need to do, we need to add the entity. This way, let me just have a breakpoint over here. Let me try rerunning it again. So I'm going to add to basket, and let me just quickly try adding this, and you can see now when I'm going to add this entity and call the save changes, now this entity should have an ID, and you can see we have an ID 1. And when I'm going to move further, it should not break. So you can see we are landing on this page. So let's just try checking out, and let's just move, and an order should have been created. Let's try to see. You can see we are able to successfully show our order history. Let's just see if we can find the details too. So you can see we are able to access the details. So far we have reached till the end of the video. So after a very long time, we are able to somehow achieve this, and we are able to successfully see the orders. So hooray to us, the one who are watching this video, and we have reached so far. It took a bit of time, and there were couple of different issues which we have faced. So let's just try doing one more thing. If we have this order, let's try to adding one more thing, because let's just add this. Let me just remove all the breakpoints. Let me just disable all breakpoints. We are going to see, and let me do one more thing. Try going back to the main dashboard and adding 2 items. So you can see a total of 24 is being there. Let's try to check it out, and let's try to see the orders. Correct, we are having an order having 24, and let's just go to the detail. So you can see not just this, but we are having 2 items, one each. So we are able to successfully complete our orders. That was a pretty difficult, I would say, or a complex video. It took around more than 2 hours to complete this video, and but I am very hopeful that you have learned a lot of things. And it was not just order related thing. It was setting some foundation for the asynchronous methods that we are going to use in the future implementations, and that was setting the foundation. So I'm very hopeful that you are not just learning the e-commerce application, but you are also learning how object-oriented programming works, how different access modifiers works, how hierarchy is working in object-oriented programming, and how things are related in domain-driven design. I'm very hopeful that you are learning along with me, If you feel like these videos are adding value to your skills, feel free to like the video and do add your comments, and don't forget to subscribe the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.